Okay, well, thanks for returning for part two of the Veronica's Whisper series. I'm really going to fast forward here from the orb story, the white orb story that I believe to be my grandmother, to when I was 19, I met a wonderful boy. We dated, he became my high school sweetheart, and we married. We had a beautiful little baby boy shortly after. We moved to a town called Ravenna, which is right outside of Kent, Ohio. My husband was a full-time student at Kent State University, and we set up housekeeping in this old farmhouse. We lived on the bottom floor. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, living room, kitchen, perfect for a small family of 3. My husband worked from about 11:30 at night, all night long, till about 6 o'clock in the morning, would come home, have breakfast, and sleep for a little bit. Then he would get up and go to classes until 4, 5, or 6 in the afternoon. And this was our routine. One day, I was dusting in the living room, and I did a lot of housekeeping in those days. I was a fastidious housekeeper, and I was dusting an end table that was near to the doorway that went into our kitchen, an open doorway. To the right-hand side of this doorway, if I'm looking into the kitchen, there was a refrigerator that butted right up against that doorway, and on the other side of the doorway, our kitchen counter butted up against the other side of the doorway. Anyway, I'm dusting this table, and all of a sudden, this man jumps out into that open doorway, and he went like this, "Boo!" and then jumped back. Well, it was too funny, too humorous for me to be scared. I knew that there couldn't be a man there. He couldn't have appeared or jumped out of the refrigerator, or he just couldn't have done that. And so I'm going through this in my mind, knowing full well that there couldn't have been a man there, when suddenly here he comes again. Boo! And then jumps back again. This guy was a man. He wasn't translucent. He wasn't some eerie, foggy figure. He was a man. He was heavy set. He had a round face. He was probably middle-aged. He was balding, but what little hair he had was very dark. He had on a blue and red and some other color flannel plaid shirt and a pair of denim bibbed overalls and boots like a farmer. Well, I had no idea what this was, and this was something that I did not share with my husband or anybody else for that matter. I think this is the first time I've shared it since it happened. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know, maybe it's just a reminder that there's more to this world than what we know. Not long after that, I was fixing dinner. My husband had been at school all day long, and I knew that he would be returning soon, so I was setting the table. And our kitchen table was in this all-windowed little breakfast nook. And outside the windows, you could see our backyard, and you could see the woods in the back of the house that extended beyond our backyard. I'd put the glasses on the table. My little boy was in a little baby carrier on top of the kitchen table. And I saw this strange light suddenly illuminate the entire backyard. And I looked at this and I watched it for a little while, and it was this real stroby, bright white light, and it illuminated the entire backyard as well as the woods beyond. I could see little patches of snow in the backyard, and I could see some snow in the trees in the woods behind our house. And then it went out. So I stood there for a few more minutes and just watched the backyard, and it came back again. And this was a stroby light that originated from the ground up, and as it moved up, it illuminated everything in its path. And this happened several more times, and I stood there observing this. Just then, my husband, I can see him coming up in the car. I can see the hood of the car coming up the driveway. And he parks the car, and I'm thinking he probably saw this. So as soon as he got in the back door, I said to him, "Did you see that light?" And he said, "What light?" And I said, "I'm sure you could have seen it because you were just pulling in the driveway." And I explained to him what it looked like. Well, he said, "Well, I don't know. I didn't see anything. I have no idea what that would be." So we just kind of left it alone. A few nights later, and it must have been a Sunday because he didn't go to school that day and he didn't have to work that night. So he was home, one of the few times that he was home all night long. And the routine was that we would, have dinner and then play with the baby and put the baby down, and then we would go to sleep, which we did. And then the further routine was that when we got in the bedroom, I would pull the blinds down. They were those old-timey blinds that you pull down in front of your windows. And they were those thick vinyl blinds. So I did that. We went to bed and we went to sleep. At sometime in the early morning hours, I sat straight up in bed out of a sound sleep, and my eyes flew open, and there was this bright, blinding white light inside of our bedroom. Well, I was squinting because the light was literally blinding, and that's all I could see was this blinding white light. I was shielding my eyes and I was squinting, and the first thing I thought of was our baby. So I jumped out of bed and ran around the foot of the bed to the cradle. Our son was still sleeping in a cradle, so I know he wasn't more than about 4 months old. And it was on my husband's side of the bed. So I went over to our baby, and I'm squinting in this light, and I'm feeling him, and he's warm, and he's in babyland, he's sleeping and dreaming, and he's sound asleep, and I can feel him breathing. So I rested easier. By this time the light's gone. So I made my way around the foot of the bed again, and I got back in bed, and I'm laying there, and my husband never woke up. So I'm laying there and I'm just going over this, and I'm thinking, what was that light? So a few minutes later, the light returns, as bright and brilliant and blinding as it was the first time. And I am very confused about this. I am just sitting up in bed again, and I'm just squinting my eyes and covering my eyes and wondering, what is going on? What is going on? And I'm looking at the windows to see where this light is coming from, and it's not coming from anywhere. It's just in our room. And I start to try to wake my husband up. And of course, he's tired all the time, and it's hard to rouse him. And I'm shaking him, and I'm calling his name. And finally, as he begins to wake up and moan and kind of groan out of his sleep, the light goes out again, and I'm left there to explain this incredible experience that I can't really explain. He sat up with me for quite a long time after this happened, because I was really upset and I was very confused. Now, I have to tell you that it was within 4 months from this time that my husband died. He drowned. And I have revisited this story, I can't tell you how many times, to try to come to terms with what that was. And I have often thought that there has to be a connection between my husband's death and this blinding white light that just consumed our bedroom that night. I really have never come to terms with this story, and never come to terms with how it's connected to his death. Perhaps you have some ideas. I don't know. Now, I do have some other stories about white light. They occurred in totally different ways, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed.